Real estate in an IRA, this is what it does for you. It allows you to have this asset in your IRA, tax-free in a Roth or tax-deferred in a different kind of account. Here comes the rent, it all comes in, expenses for that asset go out. Now you have a liquidity event, say you sell that property. 100% of those proceeds come back into the IRA. They're not diminished by tax like they would be if it was a personal deal. But in an IRA, you don't get taxed on that sale. And 100% of those proceeds go back out into your next deal. So you compound faster. You get to have that velocity and that power of all those dollars into your next deal.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today's guest, Kaaren Hall, is the CEO of uDirect IRA Services and OCREIA. Despite being in the midst of a recession and mortgage market collapse, Kaaren founded and made a resounding success of uDirect IRA Services. She discovered a strategic way to put her 20-plus years experience in real estate, property management, and mortgage lending into one avenue, one channel to serve real estate investors. She's a Gobundance Women's member as well, and I'm really, really happy to have her here today. Welcome, Kaaren.
Oh, thanks so much, Jamie. Just really happy to be here.
Of course. And a reminder to everybody, go to Gobundance.com, fill out an application. There's a community for you. It's an incredible experience if you haven't done it yet. So, Kaaren, let's start with a little bit of backstory. You talked about like radio DJing, and you gave me like a preview of the voice, which is perfect for radio. So what gives radio DJ to CEO of an IRA company? Well, give me, what's going on? What happened?
Like everybody, I made the logical transition from, one career into real estate, because we all realize that's how you build wealth, right? So,
true.
One day it was light rock, let's talk, K-Light 98.7 FM. And the next day it's, hey, real estate, mortgage. First it was, I got a real estate license and I was in my 20s. And for a year, drove people around in my car. Then I got engaged and became the trailing spouse. So I did a lot of other jobs like mortgage loan servicing for quite a number of years. And then in 1999, moved into loan origination and just loved loan origination. And what I really loved about it was how I found that through mortgages, I could help people have financial freedom. One of the most incredible experiences I had with that was this single mom who had a lot of bills, and she didn't realize that she could consolidate all of those bills into her mortgage and make that debt, number one, at a lower rate, and number two, all that debt was now going to be tax deductible to her at the time. So that was the rule then. So and so all that was tax deductible. And so she sent me a letter, and she said, she called me on the phone. She says, I don't get any mail anymore, all those bills. And I said, hey, if you want, I'll send you a postcard. But she had financial freedom for herself and her kids because she refinanced. And that's the power of lending. And also the power of lending was giving me a way to help raise my family and help bring my kids up. It was a very powerful thing.
Give me a timeline on this. So you were a radio DJ for, I believe, 17 years, you said?
Okay, now you're going to figure out how old I am. I'm 104.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to do. Let's see, carry the three. No, but so you were doing this. You were doing this through. Well, the question I was going to have when you originally said that was, how does look? I started it with the idea of being in radio. I never fully fleshed it out, but I had like a non-commercial broadcaster's license. I wanted to be a radio DJ. All that. Oh,
you
stuff.
got the voice, yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I was going to follow that through, but honestly, I didn't have the passion to go to like Dubuque, Iowa to do the overnight classical 2 to 6 a.m. drive or whatever. I just didn't have that in me. Yeah. And I know radio, I mean, unless you're at the pinnacle of it, doesn't make a ton of money. So my question was going to be, how'd you make enough money to start investing in real estate? But you have a real estate license, lending, all of this stuff. And you're going back to 99, which was, makes you very young still. But were you in radio like throughout all of this, being a parent, like you called it the trailing parent? Like where did radio start and where did radio end? Let's shore that.
Radio started in college. Okay. I was on the collegiate radio station there, the KRCK, and
you remember the call sig? You remember the letters?
You say something a billion times, you remember it, KRCK. I totally do. So, and anyway, it was so much fun, and I was a broadcasting. You're dying over there.
I love how you go into it. Like you could hear you go like, oh, okay, RC.
Well, look, I'm standing here. I've got a microphone in front of me.
Move up. Yes.
I just need a turntable and I'm here. That was the day. Let me cue up some records,
Yeah, right. So when did you end? When did you stop being in radio?
Gosh, I officially stopped in probably about 1998. I would say by then I was living in Las Vegas. My kids were both little and I had a weekend job. It's funny because I moved to Las Vegas, like part of being the trailing spouse thing. I'm getting my hair done and I'm listening to the radio and I hear this voice. It's like, I know this guy. It turns out I trained him for his very first air shift. And there he was. I'm listening to him in this place where I'm getting my hair done. And I call him up and he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So he hired me to do weekends while I'm doing my regular job. At that time, it was working for a home builder, doing the mortgages for a home builder. And so I did radio all throughout at this, simultaneously with these other things, because a radio shift is 4 or 6 hours. Then you've got the rest of your day.
Yeah. Now, lending, you got into what year did you say? Was it 99?
It was. Yeah. We moved to Orange County where I've lived ever since. So, that's a good solid, 24 years that I've lived here in Orange County, California. Yeah. And I got into, I'd say that's when I got into origination. Yeah. It was called LoanWorks at the time, turned into IndyMac Bank, turned into Mortgage Meltdown.
Well, I was going to ask you, was 08 obviously, but even, I don't know how much .com, 2000, 2001, was there an impact there as well in the origination space, in the loan origination space? I would imagine there was, no?
There was, yeah. We were an online mortgage company, LoanWorks it was called. It was a spin-off, a REIT off of Countrywide. And and it was all the tech people that were doing loans with us because they were the first ones, the early adapters, to go online and do a loan online. It was still early days. There wasn't a lot of trust in the internet, right? And maybe with good reason. So I started doing loans, and at that time I was originating them, originating them, processing them, and really underwriting them. The only thing I wasn't doing is drawing up the docs and funding the deal. But I worked with hundreds of borrowers doing all kinds of things, buying and refinancing, and I could watch them build their personal wealth. And that was where I really gained all the jargon and the structure and the techniques, how people do things. So I was able to then implement that later on in my life into my own transactions, for my own family.
What, so you were in the origination space of the loan space still in 08, 09 then, it sounds like, correct?
I wasn't. I got out in, I'd say 07, and that's when I went to work for a self-directed IRA company here in Orange County. And I worked for them for 2 years before jumping out and making uDirect IRA Services, creating this company.
Gotcha. You go back to the trailing spouse for a moment. When did that end, trailing? When did trailing end and how? How did that, that could be a tough conversation or it could be just a shift in the identity of the relationship. What did that look like?
Well, kind of both. Well, in 1999 is when we landed in Orange County, California, bought a house. I did get divorced 3 years later. So there's that. I became a single mom. So at that time, when I opened uDirect, I was like a single mom with 2 kids and a mortgage in a meltdown. And I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to, just put food on the table? And the answer ended up being self-directed IRAs, this little known thing. You don't, that's like I was a little girl hoping to self-direct IRAs one day. That wasn't my end game, but it was so perfect because I've got this radio talent and the ability to speak in public. I know a little bit about that. I know about lending, which self-directed IRA investors, they invest in performing and non-performing debt, lending and loans and so forth. And all that jargon comes into play. And also real estate, like buying and selling my own real estate. And as a real estate agent, in fact, I had a license in 3 different states, in Texas, in Washington State, and California. And I've also had an insurance license. So I just sort of learned about financial services. So all that comes together in what I'm doing here at uDirect. So we understand what our investors are doing. I hire people that have a real estate background so that they understand not just the nomenclature, the jargon, but also the urgency and what's what and what goes where. And if this doesn't work, what do you do? So I'd say that one thing you learn in the mortgage industry is how to put out fires and how to solve problems. You just go to the ends of the earth to figure out the answer.
It's very unique. I want to dive into sort of clientele, ideal client, because there's so much noise in the IRA or EQRP or whatever space, right? So I want to dive into that here in a second. But if you don't mind, I want to spend one more minute on the personal side, and maybe this is so. Right now, I have a soon to be 8 and soon to be 5-year-old boys, and my wife has been, like the trailing spouse. She would hate to call herself that, but she's been, raising the kids as I've been forging forward on career and then leaving corporate America and going full time into sort of real estate, online, all this stuff, right? But now she's at this pivot point where she's transitioning to, not being trailing anymore. Like, we've just had this conversation about me needing to create space so that she can have her own, like almost like her own single tract within the relationship. Maybe I'm asking for advice, or just for anybody that might be in this space. But when your marriage, if you don't mind sharing, when your marriage ended up ending, was it anything to do with that? Were you coming out of it? Was it a matter of like, the relationship didn't have space for you to now ascend up? Like, what did that? How do you manage through that? Or how did you manage through that? And
Yeah, that wasn't the reason for the divorce, so that's good. And anything I wanted to do was always supported, so that's good. And I always supported him. That's why I was the trailing spouse. It's like, hey, let's move. Like, okay, let's pick it up and go. Who knows what's ahead? You never know what's ahead. You have to have some sense of adventure. But once I was divorced and on my own, then it was okay. Let's go forward. And you're right. So when you don't have a spouse anymore, as a woman now, I'm taking out the garbage, and there are things I was doing, but so you just find other things to do, other care for the kids and a lot of activities. So the kids were in a lot of activities and found really healthy ways for them to just get their energy out. A lot of sports. And by the way, my son ended up being a collegiate athlete. My daughter in high school was in water polo, and she was a swimmer, and now she just got her master's degree last summer. And my son now, he's getting his master's in theology. He's in seminary to be a Presbyterian minister. How do you like that?
Amazing. What was his college sport?
It was okay. His high school sport was football, rugby, and track, but he didn't want to get a concussion in college, so he became a hammer thrower. Right. So you see me, I'm Norwegian and Swedish. He's this big Norwegian kid with blonde hair, and he just looks all Viking. And I wanted to name him Thor, and I got vetoed. But who was right? Okay. So he threw the hammer, which is like a giant, oh my gosh, like a giant shot put with a cable attached to it. And you spin it and you turn your whole body around and you throw it. And whoever can throw the furthest wins. And oh my gosh, he was just like a mountain of muscle. Those young men that do this, crazy. And he finished 18th in the nation as a D1 athlete.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
it was appropriate, throwing the hammer. I like that name.
Yeah.
Magnus
Thor
comes to mind, right? Norwegian strongman. Like think of Magnus. Everybody's named Magnus. No, but.
Yeah. Or Sven or something.
Or Sven. Yeah. That's also, that's in
but
the
his name is
mode.
Mitchell, but he's my Viking. And that's his nickname is Thor. He has Thor t-shirts. People give him Thor stuff for Christmas,
That's awesome.
So it all worked out well, but no, those are tough years.
Yeah.
And you can't make light of how hard that is. And I think that those are the times when you really dig in deep and realize how deep your inner resources really can be. And how you can, even though we all have the same amount of hours in a day, how you can get the most out of those hours, really squeeze them. And that's what I did. I mean, it wasn't a lot of sleep, but the results, it's successful uDirect, successful kids, and things are going fine.
I love the inner resources. That's a great phrase. So uDirect. All right. So I don't know. Here's how I'm playing it in my mind, right? So you had a job at one company and you're moving to another company. Often you take 401k, you dump it into IRA. That's kind of a traditional thing that you hear about quite a bit. Or, you do leave the corporate world, or you have an IRA because you want to invest in real estate or whatever. Who comes to you? Like, do you target specifically, hey, IRA funds directed at real estate investment? Is that kind of what you're targeting? Do you turn away somebody who's like, I just want an IRA that I can, put money into, maybe it's checkbook control or whatever the case may be, Tell me about what you target. What is it that uDirect is, what's the niche of it, or what's it specializing in?
Our niche is alternative assets. So the people we turn away are people who don't understand alternative assets.
What's an alternative asset? What do you mean by that?
Right. I know. I should define these words here.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, alternative asset, that's outside of the stock market, alternative to not stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But, now it's real estate, which is like multifamilies, storage units, mobile home parks, commercial buildings, private equity, Reg D offerings, private placements, all kind of words for the same thing. Also precious metals, buying, performing, and non-performing debt, your IRA being the lender and lending money to people. So it's people in the real estate space, because 99% of the assets that we do see come through our doors here are in some way tied to real estate, you see. Mm-hmm. And that's what that means. Alternative asset means not a stock market, not a market correlated asset.
Talk about, you mentioned like the origination space, loan, mortgage servicing, all of that. You've kind of taken that and channeled it into this. How does that experience help a client at uDirect with the product that you've designed?
It helps because when someone calls us to tell us about their deal, we know what they're talking about.
Got it. Okay.
And you definitely, when you've got a deal, you want to be heard, and you want to know the person on the other end knows what you're trying to do and gets your goal, so that we can get you to the end and understands the nuances of it. And at the same time, we also have to be able to explain things. Like sometimes, like in the old days, it would just be okay to just have a napkin note, like, I, Bob, lend you, Kathy, $80 million, whatever. And that was, considered a contract. But in self-directed IRA world, it's just not. We need a principal amount, we need a rate, we need a maturity date, all those different, a P&I payment, we need all of that data stated on the note. And it can't just be a napkin note, for example.
Yeah, makes sense. When somebody's investing in real estate inside of an IRA, what comes to my mind is the ability, like the value of real estate in many ways is tax advantages, bonus depreciation and all of that. Is there an advantage to investing in an IRA in any way and leveraging depreciation, even though you're not able to really see that IRA funds, IRA returns are all for a later distribution to you. So right. Is there a disadvantage or advantage in any way in having real estate in an IRA from a depreciation perspective?
Right. Well, whenever I talk in public, I always, speak about this on this topic. I mentioned that real estate might not be ideal for an IRA because you're going to lose those kinds of tax advantages like depreciation, like cost segregation. You're not going to be able to realize that kind of a benefit with a self-directed IRA. So if you have the cash, maybe making the deal with your cash makes more sense, right? But if you don't have the cash and maybe you've got this big fat 401k or 403b or whatever, 457 from your old employer or a big IRA, you move it over. And now the question is, do I invest that money in the stock market or do I invest it in asset classes that I know and understand, like real estate? So a lot of our target market, to go back to your other question, is real estate investors. And that's why I have OC RIA. It's every major metropolitan area has a RIA, and ours is in Orange County, so it's OC RIA, to talk about in a different corporate structure, about real estate transactions and how they work, and bring on great speakers like some of the Gobundance members, like Amanda Hahn, for example, has spoken at our group. So it all ties together. But 100%. Real estate in an IRA, this is what it does for you, is that it allows you to have this asset in your IRA tax-free in a Roth or tax-deferred in a different kind of account. So here comes the rent, it all comes in, expenses for that asset go out. Now you have a liquidity event. Say you sell that property, 100% of those proceeds come back into the IRA, right? Mm-hmm. They're not diminished by tax like they would be if it was a personal deal, right? You get taxed. Yeah. But in an IRA, you don't get taxed on that sale. And 100% of those proceeds go back out into your next deal. So you compound faster. You get to have that velocity and that power of all those dollars into your next deal.
Is there no way to leverage depreciation at any point in an IRA? Is there no avenue where depreciation plays into, anything now or future?
Yes, there is a small sliver of the pie where depreciation could come into play. And that is when your IRA borrows money. So basically an IRA can get a loan. It's a non-recourse loan. It's not a regular Fannie Freddie loan or anything. It's not like borrowing for your own personal home at all. It's a different loan. It's a commercial loan made to the IRA account. So say it's for real estate. Say it's a $100,000 property. You've got $70,000 you put in from your IRA, $30,000 is borrowed. Now you get a $1,000 rent payment. Great. So 30% of that $1,000 rent payment came from leverage. So $300, 30% is subject to this tax called UDFI, unrelated debt financed income tax. So that can be taxable, and your tax person would file a 990T. Now, when your tax person is filing that 990T, they'll take into account depreciation. If you invest in private equity in somebody else's Reg D offering, and they're taking on debt, that will pass UDFI through the K1 onto your IRA. And you might not even know that. So you need to know that. But if it does, then the tax person's going to look at depreciation. Did they do a cost seg? What did they do? And put that through. So you may owe zero tax, but you still need to file a 990T when your IRA takes on leverage and receives proceeds from leverage.
What you started to say, and actually I wrote it down. What is UBIT tax? If I'm saying that right.
Yeah. Well, pretty close. Yeah. So if you want to read about it, you could go to the IRS's website, irs.gov, and it's publication 598. Pub 598 talks all about it. Ask your tax person, since we don't give tax advice.
Right.
But there are two twin taxes. There's UBIT, which is investing in an active business. Then you have to pay this tax. And UDFI, which is the tax on income to a non-taxable entity due to leverage. Okay. And so these two taxes are about the same rate as the trust rate. So it's pretty high. And before you get into a deal, you definitely always want to talk to your advisors. Have your attorney review whatever contract you're investing in. This is due diligence. Talk to your tax people and say, look, this is what I'm looking to do. What are my tax benefits and what do I need to look out for? And find out if they know how to file a 990T, right? So we always offer our customers at uDirect a consultation. We've got a badge on our website, free consultation. We'll talk to you about your deal because we want to hear if you have any red flags, like the possibility of needing to understand UBIT and UDFI or understand the other rules like prohibited transactions.
Interesting. You and I were talking briefly, and you put it in your bio about Secure Act 2.0. Can you explain what that is, how it's changing, if at all, retirement accounts or making changes potentially to retirement accounts? What is that? And what do people need to know about it? I
will. So we had a Secure Act 1.0 in 2019, and it didn't do a lot, but what it did, one thing it did that affects IRA investors is it changed the RMD age. So RMD is required minimum distribution. So when you have an account, not a Roth typically, but like a traditional or a SEP or a simple IRA or a 401k, once you reach a certain age, you're required to take a certain amount of money out. Okay, it's required. So that RMD age was 70 and a half. Secure Act 1.0 changed that from 70 and a half to 72. So for a couple of years now, it's been 72 years for your RMD phase. Secure Act 2.0 changed that age to 73. Yay. And so, who cares? Why is that a good thing, right? So it's a good thing because if you are approaching your RMD phase, you get to keep that money in your account longer. It gets to keep baking and working and investing and growing tax-free longer than it would have otherwise before you have to take it out. But here's some other good news about Secure Act 2.0. 10 years from now, in 2033, the RMD minimum age will go to 75. Yay, we're living longer. And the government, the powers that be are acknowledging that. People, we used to be at 65. That was about the age you died. And right now it's about the age that you get a Ferrari, right? Or whatever. But you just get started then.
To be clear on this though, so 75 is the required Like you have to, if you haven't taken it by then, you have to start by then in 10 years, right? Or 73.
Yeah. Today the age, for, starting January 1st, 2023, the age is 73. In 10 years, it will go up to 75. But yes, so what you do is you go on the IRS's website and they have this chart. So you factor in how much you have versus, you meet the coordinates in the middle to find out what your factor is.
Yeah.
You multiply the balance of all your retirement accounts by that factor, and you come up with a number. And that's the amount that you must withdraw from your account.
At 73.
Today at 73, right? Depends on when you were born, when you're in there. So this is another great time to talk to your tax advisor. And you should be talking to your tax advisor annually and tax planning. Like, hey, this is coming up. How should I meet this? And not just be surprised that this event is coming up, but be prepared for it by having an annual consultation with your tax advisor.
This is a dumb question, but when can you start taking distributions?
Anytime, literally. I mean, it's your money, right? So you can have it at any time, but if you take money out of your account before you're 59 and a half, it's taxable to you. And I'm talking about a traditional or a SEP or a 401k for the most part. And even a Roth IRA. So, but once you're older than 50, you can take the money out. Now in a pre-tax account, it's still taxable, but there's no penalty. You don't face a penalty.
So 50 is the 50 59. Eliminates the penalty?
59 and a half.
59 eliminates the penalty. Got
almost 60,
okay.
50. I don't know why it's 59 and a half. It's so arbitrary, but there it is. It's 59 and a half. Then you can start taking it out without a penalty.
Is there anything right now? I mean, we're going through this change, right? We went from sort of a all Republican to all Democrat. Now we have a Democratic president. One house is Republican. I'm just curious, like what's on the table? What is, retirement accounts are always something of discussion, but like, what's in your crosshairs? What are you seeing or hearing? Even if it's like, I don't see it's a big chance, but this is what's out there right now. Like, what's next? What are you seeing and hearing on the horizon?
Yeah, I have a real answer to that because I sit on the board of directors for the Retirement Industry Trust Association, and we have lobbyists that are talking to lawmakers, and legislators and so forth, and regulators every day. And with the Secure Act 2.0, this was totally bipartisan. Retirement is something that both parties are concerned about equally. This was actually something that didn't have a lot of contention. Everyone agreed it needed, how could we make it better? And Secure Act 2.0 in a lot of ways makes it better. In fact, another thing to mention about Secure Act 2.0 is it brings us 2 new kinds of retirement accounts, sort of. So it's like a hybrid. So we have a SEP IRA, which is for employers called a Simplified Employee Pension, SEP. We have a simple IRA, which is also for employers called the Savings Incentive Match Plan for Employers, another acronym, thanks to the government, acronyms. So the SEP and simple right now, when you contribute, it's pre-tax dollars and you get a tax deduction. But what Secure Act 2.0 did is said, okay, now that money can go in as Roth money. The money now can go into your SEP and simple as after-tax dollars and grow tax-free. So that became effective January 1st this year. But, however, there is no guidance. There is no account prototype. So we don't know how those rules are going to come down and what the fine points of those are. And we don't have an account application from the IRS saying this is how you present it. Here are the disclosures. We have to wait. And so we're probably going to be waiting until at least this summer before we can start offering the Roth SEP and the Roth Simple.
Let me be clear on this. So this is a Roth. Again, my basic explanation and understanding of it. The Roth is essentially saying, hey, you contribute post-tax dollars from your paycheck, and the growth on that, into your 401k, into your SEP, into whatever, the growth on that is tax-free, right?
Yes.
There's the pre-tax option, like you mentioned. Hey, you can do pre-tax dollars into your, before your employer swipes away an amount to kind of withhold for tax season. You could take pre-tax dollars, drop it into a 401k, and say you did that for 20 years, right? And over time, that built up to a certain amount, and then there's compounding and everything. So if I'm hearing this right, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but what this is saying is essentially you can convert that over to a Roth with no penalty?
Well, that's not what I'm saying. But you
Okay.
can, but you can convert to Roth If you do, you will pay tax on a conversion.
Well,
I'm talking
right.
about something different.
Yeah, help me out then. I didn't quite catch that. What's the difference?
Yeah, I'm going, since I understand it, I think I'm going through it quickly.
No, it's okay.
But there's pre-tax and after-tax, those two ways to contribute.
Yep.
And so the after-tax, the Roth is referred to the like you've paid your tax on that money. That's equal to Roth. And so you can contribute to a Roth account unless your income's too high. There are a lot of little factors. Again, this is why we offer the consultation and get you through this so you understand your own individual situation. But now what you're talking about is a conversion. If you have pre-tax dollars and you want to turn them into after-tax dollars, that is a Roth conversion, sometimes called the backdoor Roth. And when you do that, any amount converted is taxable, not penalized, but taxable.
Right.
So there are two things. It's like contributing to an account after tax or converting to Roth. Those are two different things.
So then go back to this change that doesn't have any sort of, clarity on it, and you may not know. So who's the person? What's the situation? This is where I've had a Roth in the past?
No.
Or who? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure. So this is an employer, and maybe you're self-employed, you have a couple of full-time employees, and you have a SEP, a simplified employee pension, for example.
Got it.
And so you contribute every year for your employees. And so that contribution has always been like a traditional, where the contribution you're making for yourself and your employees is a pre-tax kind of a contribution. Mm-hmm. And the business may see a tax deduction for it, for making that contribution to their employees. And then that money grows in the employees' accounts, retirement account, their portion of the SEP, until they take it out and they'll pay tax at the end. But what this new thing, and I'm so glad you're helping me flesh this out because it's really important to understand.
Sure.
That now, once we get once the Department of Treasury comes out, with all the details, is that you're going to put your money in, like as an employer, you'll make those same contributions, but they can be after-tax dollars. So that means that you've already paid tax on them. They go in after tax. And now your employees have these after-tax dollars. And as long as I assume that it'll be the same kind of rules. But for a Roth, you have to meet two qualifying conditions: be 59 and a half and have a Roth account for 5 years. Just a Roth account. And if you meet those two conditions, then the money comes out tax-free. So how great to be a small employer, have a SEP plan, which, by the way, can be self-directed. And then your employees have this tax-free money, and after they turn 59 and a half, as long as they've had a Roth account for 5 years and they're 59 and a half, they can take out that money tax-free that they got from their employer. Very, very powerful.
For the employer, there's a lot of there's a great marketing in that, right? Like, hey, we're gonna set this up for you so that it's tax-free once you go to withdraw it at 59 and a half. Is there an advantage in that for the employer, paying in post-tax dollars versus pre-tax dollars?
Really, now as an employer, I'm thinking, that means as an employer, I get to pay the tax,
right?
Because after tax dollars, I get a tax deduction as a CEO. But there are. So this is the IRA level we're talking about. So if we go up to the next level, the next level up, those are the ERISA plans for full-blown companies with employees, like uDirect IRA Services. So we have a 401k. Which is a special kind of plan, has different rules than the IRA. And I get as an employer, the company receives tax benefits for what we do. And even above the 401k is the defined benefit plan. So there are higher and higher kinds of retirement accounts that we don't offer. We offer retirement accounts to the individual. More, the SEP and the Simple are for employers. So is the Solo K to a small company with no employees. But we focus on the individual plans mostly.
Got it. uDirect, give me an idea of the scope size, what number of employees, assets under management. I don't know if you would call it that. That's funny. I'm in this real estate space. Like what does it look like? What's the size and scope of uDirect at this point? Well,
we have nearly $1 billion under management, and that's pretty great. We're in our 14th year. We have our anniversary, hitting 14 years officially in August. So that's great. And we have 12 employees at uDirect. And then we also have a trust company custodian that we utilize, and they have multiple employees, dozens of employees, and they do the cash management, the tax reporting, and the record keeping.
Gotcha. Are you personally investing in real estate as well, or are you more? Is this is what you do and you help those that are investing in real estate?
Oh, I do. And you can't hang around a bunch of real estate investors without getting, without catching the bug.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, I've invested in the deals of some asset sponsors I know, because you can imagine we don't recommend investments, but you better believe I know a lot of asset sponsors, a lot of people who have opportunities, and I can kind of sift them out for myself. And I'm in maybe half a dozen of those, and I have a couple of rental properties as well.
Nice. Gobundance Women. You mentioned Amanda Hahn dragged you in kicking and screaming. I love that. I just literally interviewed her a few minutes ago. So
she's the best.
What's been the advantage for you of being in a community like that?
I just had no idea how powerful it was going to be, Gobundance. Especially during COVID, we're all so isolated. And then to walk into this really awesome tribe of women, and I say tribe because these are some strong girls, but also cool girls. And you don't have to explain yourself when you're a CEO or you're a business owner. A lot of things that you're going to talk about socially, people, they want to talk about something else. But when you're a CEO, you can really get down to it about employees, and you can talk about cash flow, and you could talk about growth and exit strategies and all these business strategy things. And then there's also the personal side. So we're talking about all the issues like the stress issues that we face. And in Sedona, I was in the Sedona retreat, and we did this really awesome meditation, which was so great to just relax and all be together, but we're of a similar mind. We have similar goals, and we're supporting each other. It's really great.
Interesting. No, I love it. I've been on the men's side for 4 years, and I feel similarly. It's I always say the ROI you can't calculate is the ability to show up as your whole self with other people that understand where, even if it's your ambition, and if nothing else, it could be understand your business, understand what you need to do, have kind of gone before you, but at least understand your ambition, because that's hard to communicate with your regular network, I guess you could say, right? So no, that's great. That's great. All right, let's wrap this on a question from the Gobundance card game. And this is a 4 of diamonds. The question is, what sport would be the funniest to add a mandatory amount of alcohol to? Hammer throwing might be in the equation here, actually.
Okay, I'm gonna throw that out. Yeah, that would be lethal. I think the funniest would probably be track and field, I guess, because you never know where they'd be running. I mean, javelins would be going everywhere, I could just see that, but I don't know. Who knows if they don't do it already? I can't tell you.
A lot of broken hurdles along the way as people are jumping over. So.
Right. Kind of like a goofy cartoon, Mickey Mouse and
yeah, exactly.
Picture it.
Kaaren, I appreciate it. How can people learn more about you, uDirect, anything that you're doing? How can we get more information from you?
Yeah, it's the letter U, uDirectIRA.com, and that's our website. info@uDirectIRA is the best way to get a hold of us. We're all over social media, so you can find us if you want to network with other self-directed investors. Look on social media. You'll meet other people. We're on LinkedIn, all the Instagram, Facebook, everything. And from time to time, we have investor networking events, typically in Orange County, California. We're having a big one coming up March 9th. I'm not sure when this is airing, but if you miss the March 9th event, we'll have another one. And we bring in people with opportunities and people with money looking to invest. And we just have a nice networking event, and people can meet each other, like-minded investors and talk. And I'm sure some deals come out of it.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure. I used to run a networking group in Michigan when I was living there, and at least 2 deals came out of that for me personally, just by running that. So it's just like you said, it's a value add, like what you're doing with OCREIA. Right. It's a value add for everybody there. It's enjoyable, especially if you kind of come from that communications radio background, just kind of putting out stuff. But you see the return on that. So no, I love it. I love all that you're doing. So
a lot of good friendships are made too.
Absolutely. Kaaren, I appreciate you being on. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Jamie.